You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So this evening I'm joined by TG Carr, commentator MacDara MacDonncha to look ahead to Galway and Wexford this weekend. MacDara, for yourself, this time of year, do you enjoy it?
Ah, sure. Yeah, you'd be going to matches anyway, you know. So I have kind of two of the weekend. No, I've that one on Saturday for. I do also stuff for radio as well. So I'm there on Saturday in Wexford Park, Chadwick's Wexford Park, give it its right title, and I'm in Welsh Park then on Sunday for a very important Division 1B game between Waterford and Dublin. It's essentially a semi-final, league semi-final really, because whoever loses will be gone from promotion, you know. So two good matches.
This time of year, you're obviously commentating on games and you're doing work for TG Carr. Is it enjoyable to be working for TG Carr? Because we all know the service they provide throughout the Allianz Hurling and Football Leagues. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Well, the best way I can describe it is I remember a league final 2001. It was between Galway and Mayo in Croke Park. It was the time of the foot and mouth, so it was delayed and everything else. And I remember being down there with one of the technical managers that we have. And the two of us were sitting on the sideline watching it. I had been working on the Division Two final between Westmeath and Cork, I think, or somebody like that. And then the Galway Mayo game was on. The two of us were on the sideline watching it. And as I said to Tommy at the time, did you ever think, Tommy, the two would be standing here watching a game of Croke Park? And he says, "A better get," he says, "getting paid for it." So we'd be going to the matches anyway. So it's, you know what I mean? It's just carrying on the enjoyment, bringing it to the next level. And I suppose always guaranteed one of the best seats in the house.
For yourself, what has been your favorite game to commentate on?
Oh, probably still the one that comes out would be there was a club semi-final between Bridge and De La Salle in 2011. And it went to extra time, and there were 43 scores. There were 53 scores, 41 of those from play in 80 minutes, and it just swung over and back, and it was just a terrific game. You couldn't know who was going to win it at the end, and just Delazal just ran out of time. Bridge got the crucial goal, but that was a terrific game, terrific game. You know, and there was like the club final last year was very good as well. You know, it's that's probably the one that when you say it, that springs to mind.
A lot of people listening to this will picture your voice from Aina Burke's winner, obviously against O'Loughlin Gales. It's an iconic moment too, isn't it?
Oh, that was some, but you know, I said to somebody else, that's probably the way if I was at home, I'd probably say that. So it was absolutely natural. There was no rehearsal for that. Like when you see a point like that, it was one of those unbelievable points up there with Kieran Carey's, like the famous one he got against, if you remember back in the day for Limerick against Clare in '96, and you would have had Kevin Broderick's one against Kilkenny 2001, but just special score and to win a game with it like was marvelous as well.
For yourself, obviously you have loyalties in Waterford and Galway. Do you follow both throughout the championship, or is there one now that takes preference?
You follow both. You're kind of dual citizenship, and I still remember the 17 Ireland final. You know, I mean, where are you from? Where am I from? And I do remember like the game was over, and you know that little jump. Now I concealed it to a certain extent, but I always will remember as soon as that was over, looking down at the Waterford players and saying that I probably know. There's no probably. I knew more of the Waterford players at that time than the Galway players. You know, so there was obviously the delight of after 28 years or whatever it was, at breaking that duck, but disappointed I suppose that it had to be Waterford that suffered at their hands. But so I suppose I have two chances every every weekend, except when they meet.
And for yourself, the club in Galway is obviously Hashgrafona, the two Mannions, obviously the two representatives there at the minute on the Galway hurling panel. But over the last years, even there's tremendous work going into hurling there in Hashgrafona, isn't there?
There is, yeah, and there were two clubs that were probably doing a bit of yo-yoing from junior to intermediate at the time before they joined up. And it's the funny thing about a Haskell is that, and very, I won't say it's unique, but it's very rare, and that when they were separate, they'd kill one another if they were playing one another. But once one team was gone, they'd back the other team. And you don't see that too often in every club. It's usually the complete opposite. So I suppose it was natural in that sense that they'd come together. Sure, they're what, they 20 years together now. One of the great days was when they bet Lismore
Hmm.
in the All Ireland semi-final in Tullamore. That was a terrific day, and that was a day that Lismore were supremely confident going up that day, and but they found out they were mistaken.
A few years ago too, like they had a great run obviously in the senior championship. They were leaving it late and poor Mannion was going up into the edge of the square, but that was a terrific year too for them, wasn't it?
It was, and the streaming meant you had screaming and shouting going on in Waterford where I am, in Blarney where my brother is, in Naas where another brother of mine is. It was so it was, that was great. It was fantastic, and it's I don't think the likes of Pádraig and Cahill, I don't know, do they realise the pride that we have when we say, anybody asks me where are you from, and I just say Hasker, and I say Carl Mannion, Porrick Mannion, and they say, oh right, and that's no, it was the same with the Mehans in Caltra football. That was another great day when they bet the Gaeltacht in 21 years ago now. So it's the sense of pride, and you might be gone from your native place, but you're always from your native place.
And what have the two Mannions done for hurling in Haskell? Because before that we didn't see obviously many Haskell representatives on the Galway team, but as for the community, what have they done?
Asher, it's giving it a sense of pride, like, and I mean, I remember going up on the Friday after the All Ireland in 2017, and you also had Sean Blaheen, who was on the minor team at the time. I thought it was wonderful. It was just a beautiful, beautiful evening of just quiet celebration. Nobody gone mad, like, but there was huge pride there, and that is always there, and that's why you always see the colour and the flags and everything else up when they're playing, and they've played so well. They're two great clubmen, the two lads, like, and they played so well and they play so well together. So they have, like, there would have been over the years, there would have been a few more, funny enough, more football than hurling. You had Ger Smith was on the under 21 team as goalkeeper in '78 when they won the All Ireland. You would have had a few guys on minor, but we'll say not really on senior until the lads came along.
And just looking now at the Allianz Hurling League so far, MacDara, what have you made of it so far?
Um, some strange results and some expected results. I mean, the first one was looking at Galway's league. We'd say the team. I didn't really expect them to be Tipperary. I think they were trying out a few players and maybe more players than might normally be tried out on that day. And Tip came. Tip have a lot of training done. They might have just ever so slightly broken the training uh, deadlines and all those. But so they had a much stronger team out, and they got the run on Galway and won it fairly handy. Where after a lot of people thought, including myself, that Galway might be looking at relegation straight in the face, but then they came back the following week and down in Nolan Park. UPMC, Northern Park, and played some great hurling. That day. Played some really good hurling. Different team picked, you see. I think it was nine changes, and you had some established players back. And we saw Gavin Lee at 6, helped hugely by Porrick beside him at 5. The experience, and this is, I think, I think when managers are serious about trying new players, you might try 4 or 5. You might have one in a line where you have two experienced players each side of them. But I think for the tip game, in some lines there were inexperienced players together, and that's makes it much more difficult for the inexperienced players. Third game then was Clare again, played some mighty hurling altogether to go ahead and played very well. Now Clare are struggling to a certain extent. Clare's first game was home to Kilkenny. I was working on that one. They're only 4 of the All Ireland team. Probably should have got something out of it. Didn't, came back from 2 points down to go 2 points ahead and got caught. Probably shouldn't have, because they were at home. Then they were quite poor against Galway, and they weren't too hectic against Wexford. Nobody expected Wexford to beat them now. Certainly didn't expect Wexford to beat them. Wexford well beaten, missing a lot of players, and the Wexford pool of players, a bit like Waterford, small. So if they're missing 7 or 8 players, it's a huge, like, your Corks, your Limericks have a lot of players at the moment. Galway have a lot of players too. So it's more difficult for, we'll say, your Wexfords, but some win for them. Last, but it just goes to show how much of a difference Lee Chin makes when he's available.
I remember meeting you last year, MacDara. It was at the Limerick Waterford TUS in TUS Gaelic grounds. Galway and Dublin was on before it, and there was a couple of us watching it, and obviously quite frustrated that day when we seen Dave Burke get sent off and Galway get knocked out of the championship early. But there's kind of a different feeling already this year compared to last year, isn't there? Like last year, maybe Galway never really got going, and there was probably never a couple of performances that we could really get behind. But we're seeing it already, like even after that Tipperary disastrous of a start, that there's been tremendous character shown by this Galway team already.
Well, it's early days. It's early
Yeah.
days. You know what I mean? It's and like the hurling that we see in the championship will be a million miles away from the hurling that we're seeing currently
Mm.
in the league. Pitches will be better, we hope, at that stage. And so it's look, it's encouraging. It's encouraging to see some players. Great to see great to see Gavin Lee at centre back against Kilkenny. So good, good again against Clare. If he's playing now on Saturday, it'll be some contest between himself if he's marking Lee Chin. That should be a great contest if it transpires that way. Now, I know with the zonal defence it's all so different now, but it's great to see two players going well, going head to head if it happens, and having a look at it and see who's coming out on top. So yeah, it is encouraging. I mean, you're bringing in different players, and you're bringing in and as Anthony Burns for the last day from Loughrea, like the second goal was first goal, the one where he took it on the turn.
Yeah.
That, that was the second goal, was it? Oh, unbelievable, unbelievable turn, and to take. Defender might have been a bit naive, like, but the skill in setting it up and finishing it was marvelous. So it's good to see. It's good to see players coming in, and players maybe getting a chance. Tiernan Killeen playing well at centre forward. Uh, it's looking like there could be. It's early days yet now. There could be the makings of your diamond there, your 6, 8, 9, 11. And if you get that diamond right, you're gone a long way.
Would you see Galway sticking with Gavin Lee at six?
Why not? Why not? There's no other obvious contender for six at the moment, so why not leave him there? See how if is he does he continue to play as well as he has in those two games? So yeah, leave him there.
Obviously, you're mentioning with that you too, even Killian Trayer is coming in as well, the wing back the last day against Clare. Tiernan Killeen at 11, Anthony Burns inside, even Daniel Loftus in the corner, very good the last day too. These younger players, and even some of these players aren't young anymore, but they're really bringing a freshness to it, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and it was disappointing. Galway's year last year was disappointing. Like we can't no point in trying to sugarcoat it. So it needed freshening up, and it also because I think when young players like that come in or new players, I won't call them necessarily young, but new players come in, it freshens everybody. Even the established players they're lifting their levels as well because of the newness of it, and maybe Galway were gone a bit stale, and maybe we're sticking to the old guys maybe a little bit too much. Johnny Glynn, fantastic servant, but I suppose bringing Johnny back from New York that was maybe sending the wrong message to some of the younger guys there. That the oldish guy was being brought back from New York, had one last cut. It happens. Other managers, Liam Sheedy did it with Tipperary in 2020. Didn't change his background or didn't change his team really, and Tip struggled as a result for a couple of years because they hadn't the players with the experience. Now it looks like they're getting it together, yet they've a bit to go yet. But do you know what I mean? So there's a bit of freshness about Galway as well this year, which is good.
Overall, where would you say they're at?
Now I'm 51 years following Galway hurling, so I don't never get too excited early on because the excitement has been bet out of me so often. But I think. Let's wait until the league is over, I think, before we now look, there will be situations where, and it's always the situation in the league where teams are up for some games, they're not necessarily so for other games. Galway will be meeting Wexford in the championship later on. So I think there might be a little bit of cat and mouse from both of them. Wexford probably need a win here more so than Galway, because if they don't win, their last game is away to Limerick. Difficult to see them getting anything like that, so they'll probably be relegated. Now, of course, if Galway were to lose, Galway's last two games are away to Limerick and Cork as well, so they're not easy. So it's hard to know. I wouldn't judge Galway yet until the league is over. But I think that an awful lot of hurling supporters in Galway, that their minimum requirements this year will be to get out of Leinster in the championship. We didn't last year. So
Mm.
that's the minimum requirement, get out of Leinster. And build on that then and move on, I think. Mayhull has got a 4 year term. And the fact that they got a 4 year term would indicate that this is not a rush job or anything else. It's a steady job, progressive job. And I think they're going the right way. And I think once we see the next three games, because going back to those two other games against Limerick and against Cork, they're two teams who won't meet Galway until, you know, if unless they get out of Munster, will be at All Ireland stage, so they can afford to really have a cut at Galway because they won't be meeting them in a provincial championship, both teams. So they'll be two good tests of Galway as well. This one, there just might be a little bit of caginess about Saturday.
In saying that, do you think it'd be important over Galway, considering what happened down in Wexford Park last year? It was probably the sign that maybe things weren't going to go the way Galway wanted, because that day last year down in Wexford Park, there was no question about it. Wexford were the better team.
By far. By far, and probably could have won by even more. That was just a bad day for Galway. Bad day at the office. Very bad day. Dublin game wasn't much better, but
Mm.
yeah. So it's there's a little bit of both. Do you want to kind of get a bit of revenge? Do you want to maybe they played Wexford last year in a Welsh Cup final. Wexford won it, and maybe Galway played a very inexperienced team that day. Henry put out a very inexperienced team, and maybe you're kind of giving Wexford a little bit of a confidence boost that you needn't have given them. Anyway, look at fair play to Wexford on the day, and last year, to come back. Was it? Am I right in saying the previous week they had lost to Antrim, so their backs were really to the wall that day against Galway. Galway's weren't, and I think the performance might have been reflected. That might have been reflected in the respective performances, you know. And sometimes if you don't start well and the opposition gets up on you, it's very hard to stop that momentum. There are no timeouts. Like the water break was great one time. You could stop a team's momentum, but they're gone since COVID ended. But so um it's I think performance maybe, and particularly maybe some of the less experienced players, and particularly I suppose if Gavin Lee is named at six and if Lee Chin is at 11, that should be a great contest.
And even with that, if Galway are to win this weekend, they get to the 6 points and probably not mathematically secure, but Galway probably are on their way then to Division 1A status retained.
Well, they're certainly if they win this, Wexford wouldn't be able to catch them, and unless Clare beat Limerick,
Yeah.
Clare wouldn't be able to catch them either. So, and even with that, they'd have Clare on the head-to-head if Clare gets 6 points. So there's a little bit of to-wing and fro-wing still, but you would imagine 6 points should be definitely be enough. Even five might be enough if they were to draw on Saturday. Five might be enough as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. And even with Wexford, you mentioned their backs to the wall last year uh, in the Leinster Championship game, but it was backs to the wall last weekend. Don't think anyone really predicted this Wexford Clare result, but this Wexford team really just love this mindset of backs to the wall, don't they?
To do, and they seem to thrive on it, and like they did, and they had Seamus Casey, Keane Byrne would probably get his red card rescinded. I'd say, I think the lads did a good job in the defense on League Sunday on Sunday night. It was now at the time looking at it live, it looked a dangerous pull, but I don't think it was. I think in fairness, and he probably should get it rescinded. So he'd be there. Lee is obviously their centre forward, and they'll probably have Rory O'Connor back for this one. So they'll Wexford, Galway are probably better than Wexford at the moment, but that mightn't show itself on Saturday.
Yeah, even with this Wexford team, like they didn't start the league that well really, and then they obviously come into the last day, but it does really show Lee Chin's importance to them as well, doesn't it?
Huge, huge. Lee Chin is as good as three, and a point from Lee Chin is worth 3 points anytime he gets a point. And it's probably worrying for Wexford in that Lee is over the 30 at this stage, and what the only goes. And they've lost Dio O'Keefe, they've lost Matthew O'Hanlon. They're these stalwarts, like stalwarts. And it's always hard to replace guys like that who play so well. The fullback Liam Bryan, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, marvelous established players who've been there, done that, and it's hard, and they haven't won anything underage in a long time. So when you don't do that, it's difficult. Even Kilkenny are showing how much they're kind of, I won't say struggling, they're finding it a bit difficult because they haven't won too many underage All Irelands either. You need to win the odd underage All Ireland to have bring players through. And Wexford haven't been doing that in a while. Played awfully in a terrific Leinster final. Was it 2 years ago, under 20? It was played in Carlow, packed house, everything else. They were unlucky that night. I could have won it easily, but they didn't, you see. When they didn't, you're kind of, if you're winning things, there's a winning mentality and a way, that helps. It doesn't, it's not the be all and end all, but it helps. And that is one slight problem that they have. But look, Keith is doing a great job down there with his backroom team, like, and Keith will get the very best out of them. But they're getting players back, and if they have Rory O'Connor back, he'll add significantly to them around the middle of the field, So they are better than they show at the start because they're getting their players back. Quite similar to Waterford here. Waterford had their first game and were short, I think, 15 players first in all. So, like I said, small counties that find it very difficult to put in players and probably would have chosen players, selected players who are probably just a little bit short of the required level. But as their regulars come back, and now they have a smell now of survival, because if they win on Saturday, they're in with a reasonably good chance of surviving.
Just with that, what impressed you most about Wexford in that result against Clay?
Work rate, work rate was a lot of it, and from the work rate, I think, came the bit of confidence and some excellently taken scores. Seamus Casey took a few great scores, set up scores, and they had leadership, mainly Lee Chin. Lee, terrific, one of the all-time great Wexford hurlers, and he gives the leadership, and the rest of the lads kind of responded. So I suppose they'll be hoping that Conor MacDonald will come back and give that required leadership, and that Rory O'Connor will be back. Because if they have Keane Byrne, Seamus Casey, Rory O'Connor, and Lee Chen up front, that's a good forward line.
Yeah, and we've seen with it how good of a man maker as well Damien Rec has been over the last few years.
Yeah, and he's slotting in at six now, and again, established hurler, and rarely lets them down. McGuckin, what's his first name? Skipping
Charlie.
me. Yeah, he is now beginning to establish himself as well in defence, and Mark Fanning's still there. So look, they're there thereabouts. They need all their players, but when they have all their players, and they're difficult to beat down there. Now they're not unbeatable down there. And remember, Waterford or Galway going down there a couple of years ago in Championship and had a fairly comfortable win. I think it was Mihall's. I think it was in 2018. If I'm unless I'm going wrong. So Galway have done down there. They've lost down there. So that was, by the way, that's the first time since 1976 that Galway failed to beat Wexford in Championship last year. So that was a long record, which was shattered that evening.
Yeah, we used to kind of view it as not that it was a given, but we used to be fairly confident going down there to Wexford Park. But I think after last year, we're probably a bit more cautious going down there now.
Yeah, and to that extent, like, do they try to, well, they're not, they're playing them. I think they have them Pure Stadium this year, am I right? So
Yeah,
it's not as important. Like that win over Kilkenny in Kilkenny will do no harm at all when they travel down there to play them in Championship. You know, I think somebody I read somewhere that Galway have never lost to Kilkenny in the round robin. They've lost them in Leinster finals, yes. Don't think they've lost to them in the round robin since the round robin started in the Leinster Championship. Open to correction on that, I don't think so, but they haven't beat them in the Leinster finals to 2018. So it's records are there to be created and to be broken.
just with that because it's a good point you make, and I was making the point on the podcast in previous weeks. Even the big target is obviously to get out of Leinster, but when you're looking at the overall landscape of Leinster this year, Dublin look like they're in transition in one sense. There's a lot of new players and they're trying to get them into the team. Maybe there is still question marks over Kilkenny this year and with Wexford as well. Obviously, a few key players retired. Do you feel the Leinster title is a possibility for Galway this year?
See, possibility is a great word. You're not committing one way or another. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. Like, but I think. Personally, I think it'd be a bonus. Bonus of Galway won Leinster title this year. For me, I think the minimum is get out of Leinster. Minimum, get out, absolutely get out of Leinster and start playing those matches against your Munster opposition, whether it's an All Ireland, whether it's a quarter final or a preliminary quarter final, and even the semi final. This is where you build up and you meet because the Munster Championship, let's be honest, is uh, stronger than the Leinster Championship at the moment. In that you have the five teams there, and they're all capable of beating one another, as we've seen in the last couple of years, particularly last year when Waterford levels picked up a bit. So it's and they can't afford. There's no gimmies. You mentioned the word gimme earlier on. There's no gimmies in the Munster Championship, whereas arguably there's a gimme or two in the Leinster Championship. Where you know that if you're 75% right that you're going to get through. Uh, that's not the case in Munster, where they're kind of knocking lumps out of one another week after week, and it is more difficult. It's far more difficult to win a Munster Championship than to win a Leinster Championship at the moment. I don't think anybody can deny that.
In saying that, though, are we probably in for one of the most competitive Leinster championships when you look at it on an overall? Because Wexford, we've obviously seen with Wexford, Galway, Kilkenny, and Dublin, they've been going for those spots, but Offaly already look like they're building something. Now, it might be a year or two too soon for them when it comes to it, but they still look like they can give teams plenty of challenges, and we probably do expect a reaction from Antrim as well at some stage.
Antrim were very, very poor last Sunday. I looked at a recording of it afterwards, and they were quite poor. They're missing one or two players as well, and the manager up there now has a very structured way of playing hurling. It's very structured. It's very planned out, pre-planned, and I'd say some of the players up there are having difficulty getting used to this style of play. And like they've taken three trimmings now. They were well beaten by Dublin. They were well beaten by Offaly, and they were well beaten by Waterford. So they're playing Carlow now the weekend, and down in Carlow. Carlow have to 3 points from four, so Carlow won't be showing any mercy there either. And the big one for Antrim. Now, you can't guarantee that Carlow will beat them, but you would imagine Carlow will be favourites. And if that happens, the big one for Antrim is the Laois game. Now, they're lucky that they're at home, because if Laois were to beat them, Antrim will go down to Division 3, which is kind of unthinkable. But,
Division two, would it? Yeah.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Division 3,
Division
and
two, yeah. Yeah.
let's be honest now. Division 1A and 1B, they're Division 1 and Division 2. There's no point in trying to sugarcoat them with lovely letters.
Yeah. On the Galway squad heading to Wexford this weekend, Micheál was obviously speaking after the Clare game. That was Galway's last game. They had the bye last week. He was mentioning that David Burke could be back this weekend. It'd obviously be a huge lift to see him back in a Galway jersey as well this weekend.
Toad, like he came on and then came off again. Like so, I'm hearing that he may not be. He
Okay.
may not be there for that one. So if he doesn't, Finton will probably continue full back. Now Finton played well the last day against Clare at full back, and he did well against Kilkenny as well. So Finton might get another chance there, but sure, look, it's some man to have coming back, as you said, Dahi. But what I'm seeing is there's competition for places in that back line. There's competition. It would look at the moment that Keenan and Tom are going quite well in midfield. And up front, Tiernan seems to be doing the job at centre forward. So Wheelo will probably be full forward. So by degrees, the jigsaw has been put together. And it's so there are signs for optimism.
Yeah, with that, it does feel like they're beginning to now get closer to the Championship 15. That maybe they don't have it yet, but they're getting closer to it now.
Yeah, fill in the positions. Fill in the positions. You 1, 3, 6, 8, 9, 11, 14. You're up if you're up there with competition for other places, but players showing up well. And like as you said, you mentioned the wing back.
Killian Terrace.
Yes, nobody's ever heard of him, and he had a thundering game against Clare. So it's great to see lads like that coming in. Daniel Loftus wouldn't be that well known outside of Galway, but again, he was very good. And then you had and there's competition. There was a big panel to do. I know some players have one or two have been let go, but you still have a lot. And you know what was hugely encouraging for Galway was, am I right in saying the two Galway schools are in the All-Ireland semi-finals? That was
Yeah, yeah,
marvellously encouraging. Like any time a Galway team beats a Kilkenny team in hurling, it's a good day for Galway, And I mean, they're playing in their semi-finals on the weekend, Saturday, I think, before the Galway game, and that's huge. And I suppose I'm sure at the night I'll be hoping that uh, um, Aaron Nyland be able to play.
yeah,
What
yeah.
what addition he would be if he could. So stuff like that is good. That's important, and it's Galway hurling isn't in a bad place at the moment, and it's I wasn't getting too despondent after the tip game because when I saw the team, I said this is a quite very experimental team, like really. So it's probably needs patience. We needn't get too carried away when we start winning one or two, and we didn't get too despondent when we start losing one or two. But so long as you're heading going in the right direction, and I think they are.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously Dolly Burke with the hamstring. He probably more than likely is out this weekend. But there is talks already that Cathal Mannion and Dave Burke could return to the 26, which would be huge. And they're probably two players now that need games when you consider with like yeah, Wexford this weekend and then Limerick and Cork left before the championship.
Yeah, yeah, just to be match fit and to be match sharp, I suppose, and great to have guys like that still there can still do so much, and I suppose what we're looking forward to is once we see looking forward to the first round of the championship. Am I right in saying Galway playing Kilkenny the first round of the championship? Oh, what a
There's
game!
no in
What
bed.
a game to start with, like, and you're looking forward to seeing a full Galway 15 against a full Kilkenny 15. Both teams were missing players the last day. The Kilkenny backline, by the way, that they had picked for last Sunday, the game that was called off against Limerick, looked very much like their championship seven. Owen Murphy, Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, Tommy Welch, Blanchfield, Mikey Carey, and Paddy Deegan. That looks like their championship 1 to 7. And so it's, as the league moves on, all managers are trying to do that, hoping the players come back from injury and trying to get there so that they have their starting 15 in mind. So as more Galway players come back, I think we may not see the full whack on Saturday, but we may see it in one of the other two games. But I think Miho knows what he's doing. He's getting bringing players in, bringing players back, and as you mentioned, David, you mentioned Cahill and a few of those. And once they come back, then you're all there, bit by bit. Those positions are being filled with excellent options on the bench. That wasn't always the situation for Galway, so that's good.
And even with that, it's like Brian Buchanan came in the last day, but it nearly seemed like he was going to be given the 40 or 50 minutes. It was his first start, and that was how much he was ready for. Kevin Cooney as well. He's had desperate trouble with the hamstring, just really unlucky in the last year, but he's starting to come back now. Those two players probably feel like they're going to get significant game time now on Saturday night and begin to push on.
Absolutely. And like they had Galway will have had 3 weeks now from their last game to this. So, we don't know, it might have been a block of serious training done there that the 3 weeks affords you to do. It's more difficult. And actually for Limerick and for the teams that didn't get to play last weekend, I think they're going to be playing the 4 weekends
Four
in
weekends in a
March.
row, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's tough enough, particularly while the pitches are as heavy as they are, and soft tissue injuries are an issue, but 4 weekends on the trot now is hard going. So God, we're lucky that they
Five and
have
six
that.
as well if to get to the league final.
Yeah, no, that would be fierce interesting if that happens. I think that would depend too on the gap between the league final and your first championship game and who you're playing in your first championship game because I'm sure all managers would have planned out their year, start of the year, okay. We might have a cut at that, we might have a cut at that. We'll see how that goes. And to be right for the championship. I think that all managers use the league to a certain extent. Some matches they're gung ho, other matches maybe not so much. And because Galway will be playing Wexford again in the championship, there may be a little bit held back on both sides. Might be a little bit held back on both sides.
With that, the big takeaway probably coming away from the Clare game really good in the first half. Second half, probably a few concerns given the amount of wides they hit in that second half. But their encouraging signs really seem to be the inside forward play. Burns and Whelan even beginning to form a bit of a partnership there.
Which are look at the man who's
Mm.
done the coach with Eamon O'Shea, like, and it's wonderful. And Eamon has a more central role now than he would have had last year. I firmly believe. And like I think there's about 15 to 20 minutes in both games in the Kilkenny game, the Clare and the Clare game. Galway played some unbelievable hurling. Like, and now no team can play for 70 minutes, but if Galway can play like that for 50 minutes, they'd be very, very difficult to beat. And I hope I'm there. I hope it happens, one, and two, I hope I'm there to see it live.
Do you believe we're beginning to see Eamon O'Shea's fingerprints now?
Yes, in word.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So that forward play you've seen obviously is probably the prime example. Declan McLaughlin down in Nolan Park with some of the skills he showed inside that day against Kilkenny, and even Burns the last day against Clare. That's probably where we're starting to see it, is it?
What you see on your Declan Burton was on, you must remember he was on Mikey Butler,
Yeah,
a double All-Star, and bothered him consistently. And you have players coming in. Declan was unlucky last year. He broke his thumb last year, am I right in saying? I remember seeing him with a
yeah,
big
yeah.
bandage.
Correct.
So he missed games. Like, crucial players were missing for Galway last year at times, which didn't help the situation either. But I think you have exciting players coming forward. The jigsaw is beginning to be filled, and let's see after the end of the league where we are.
On it this weekend, obviously we've mentioned Leachin's going to be a key matchup, but overall, do you expect Galway to get the job done on Saturday?
If I saw the starting team now, I'd have a better idea of that, But it'd be great. It'd be a good test. Be a good test. Be a good test of some of these young lads as well, because you'll have a big crowd in Wexford now, having won last. There's always a crowd in Wexford, and there's always a great atmosphere. I love going to matches in Wexford Park because whatever about that stand, it seems to just the noise seems to thunder out onto the field. So it'll be a good test. You'll have a fine crowd there. The end of the game probably played under lights. So it's a good test of the Galway lads. If I'd be maybe giving Galway a tentative vote, but you don't really know. It's hard to know until the ball's actually thrown in and you see who the starting 15 are on both sides.
Would you see Galway sticking with more or less the same 15 they played against Clare?
You may not. No, you may see some other players get a chance. I mean, they've played 3 games now. There are still some players on the panel who haven't got any chance. Some of those might get a chance. He might rest some other players. So hard to know. Hard to know what they'll do. But I don't think. No, I don't think they'll go with the same team that they had against Clare, because that was 3 weeks ago for starters. And
Yeah.
but
Fitness probably
again,
an obvious one anyways to come in at full back at the weekend.
yeah, if that is available, yeah, yeah, probably, and if you might see, as you touched on there, you might see David and you might see Carl coming in for your 10, 15 minutes, maybe at the end of the game, and then to give them 50 the next day. You'll probably see Brian Concannon get maybe a bit longer this time, but again, look at you don't know. Like, as well as that, with the ground being as soft as it is, we've no idea like what any players pick up any injuries in training or anything like that. So really, until we see the starting team, it's hard to judge. You'd be saying give them Galway hot favourites now, which is interesting. Uh, I'd be giving them kind of a tentative vote, but not with any massive confidence.
Yeah, it does feel like Wexford's confidence is going to be hugely up now, and as we mentioned, they're kind of fighting for their lives because they really need to win this one if they're to survive in Division 1A. And with this, obviously, for Galway, you have Limerick and Cork coming down the line as well.
And both of them are away. So it's difficult. It's a difficult end of the league for Galway. Like, away to Wexford, way to Cork, way to Limerick. But great tests. Look, great test to get ready for Leinster Championship. And that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Now, 17 when Galway won the league, we went on, won Leinster and won the All Ireland. We take those again. And Clare showed last year that you can do it. Okay, they didn't win the Munster Championship, but sometimes people think, if you win the league, you want to win the championship. So it was no harm to see Clare win All Ireland, having won the league last year. And that's a myth that's sometimes peddled by players. You can't win both. Limerick did both. number of times during their four in a row. So you can do it. But again, look, I'm keep saying it. I think it's a three game end to the league for Galway, not just on Saturday.
Just with that, if we are to win this weekend, it does it's not impossible that Galway could end up finding themselves in the league final, and we wouldn't have thought that after Tipperary. But do you think if they're to get the result, do you think the league final should be the target then after this weekend?
I think the target should be establishing getting your settled championship 15 ready. Now, if that entails getting to a league final, winning it, so be it. But if it's about basically just getting your, like we said about the jigsaw, getting those slots filled, and um, if that's done and you're going into championship in a good setup there, again, as I said, with plenty of options on the bench, and you're trying lads out, and you know that you can trust the lads. There's nothing better than if you see a player who's struggling out there, knowing yourself that you have a guy on the line who's well capable of coming in and doing the job as well, and maybe even better than the players out in the field, and it that makes it very healthy overall because everybody ups their levels if they know there's serious competition. And there is, even now, there's serious competition for starting places on the Galway Championship team. And I think we would possibly see those few who may not have seen any action so far, whether they're returning from injury or whether they're one or two players who didn't get a chance yet. So again, and after that, then let's see the other two games would be two tough tests. It's three tough tests for Galway because they're playing Wexford, a desperate Wexford, as in. I don't mean desperate chronic. I mean desperate for points because Wexford will find it very, very difficult if they lose on Saturday to travel to Limerick the following week and try and get something, pull something away from the Gaelic grounds, you know. So it's I think for Galway filling those filling those gaps and finishing off the jigsaw is more important really than getting to a league final or winning the league.
And for you, MacDara, who has been Galway's player of the league so far for you?
Oh, uh, I thought Pádraig Mannion was excellent. It was really good against Kilkenny and made Gavin Lee's job so much easier. Gavin was very good in both of those games. Uh, Guido's always a threat. Tom Monaghan has been playing very well midfield. He was midfield. He wasn't. I think he was centre forward against Tipperary. Midfield, I think, possibly suits him better. Um, Darren Morrissey has played well. Uh, I'm giving you the typical politician's answer here about four or five names, but um,
I think though it's a great point with Port Mannion. I think we have probably seen him back to his best really in the Galway jersey throughout the league. It nearly seems in one sense maybe he had a shorter year than usual with the Haskell and that break maybe has stood to him heading into the league this year.
Ira has, yeah. Park is very, very, very wholehearted player. Like, um, his experience and his know-how and his organizing helps, and it's great when you're trying somebody new at six. What an advantage it is to have somebody as good and as experienced as Porrick at five. To talk you through it and help you through these things. And it'll be the same when Dahi comes back to have that core of experience around you and let you find your feet then, and then in turn then you are then as a new player then you're getting experience and you're passing on that to new players coming on. So that's evolution on the hurling field, so it's of course everybody say typical the Hasker man, he's picking the Hasker man again, but look, the facts are there. He played well the two games.
Yeah, no, it's been very impressive for sure. Obviously Galway Wexford in Wexford Park this weekend, Saturday at 5 o'clock. So that's Galway's focus for this weekend. But that's all we do time for on this evening's show. MacDara MacDonncha, thanks very much for coming on to this week's podcast.
The False Road.